Have you ever sat down at the dinner table with a warm plate of fish in front of you, maybe grilled just right, seasoned with a touch of lemon and herbs, and thought to yourself, this has to be healthy, right? It's fish, after all. Everyone says fish is good for you. And honestly, most of the time, that's true. Fish is lean. It's packed with protein. We've all heard how great those omega-3s are for the heart and brain, especially as we get older. For decades, doctors have recommended it. Nutritional guidelines have praised it. Grandparents have cooked it lovingly for generations. But what if I told you some of the most popular fish out there, the ones we often think are helping us stay healthy, might actually be doing more harm than good? What if I told you that certain fish could be quietly wearing down your body, damaging your memory, compromising your nervous system, even hurting your heart, and you wouldn't even know it until it was too late? And here's the kicker. Most people have no idea. You see, as we age, our bodies just don't filter out toxins the way they used to. The immune system gets a little slower. Our organs, especially the liver and kidneys, work a little harder. That's natural. But that also means older adults are way more vulnerable to things like mercury, heavy metals, and chemical residues, many of which are hiding inside certain kinds of fish. Because if you're over 60 or you're caring for someone who is, this is the kind of information that could actually protect your long-term health. Let's take a moment to understand why. Mercury, the silent invader. Mercury is one of nature's most dangerous toxins, and it finds its way into our food through industrial pollution. Larger predatory fish, like swordfish or big-eye tuna, live longer and eat smaller fish. That means they accumulate higher levels of mercury throughout their lives. When we eat them, that mercury enters our bloodstream. And while a younger body can flush it out fairly well, an older body cannot. Over time, mercury builds up in organs like the brain and kidneys, leading to symptoms like memory loss, confusion, mood swings, tremors, vision problems, numbness or tingling in the hands and feet. These aren't just signs of aging. They're signs of exposure, and they're preventable. Antibiotics and chemical residues, hidden in plain sight. You may have heard stories about farmed fish being treated with antibiotics, and wondered if it really affects you. Well, it does. Farmed fish are often raised in tight, crowded pens where disease spreads easily. To combat this, farmers use antibiotics, sometimes in large doses, to keep the fish alive long enough to be sold. In younger adults, occasional exposure might not seem like a big deal. But for seniors, especially those already on multiple medications or dealing with chronic conditions, antibiotic-laden fish can weaken the immune system and contribute to antibiotic resistance, making infections harder to treat. And then there are the chemical residues. Fish farms also use colorants to make salmon flesh look pink. Natural feed would turn it gray, and pesticides to kill parasites. Some of these chemicals, like PCBs and dioxins, are known carcinogens linked to cancer, hormonal disruption, and inflammation. Again, the danger isn't always immediate. It's cumulative. A single bite won't do harm. But week after week, month after month, eating the wrong kind of fish can quietly erode your health from within. So today, we're going to sit down together, not just as writer and reader, but as people who care about our future selves and the ones we love, and talk about 6 types of fish that older adults should never eat at all costs. Part 1. Fish number 1, king mackerel, the dangerous family favorite. What makes king mackerel so risky? King mackerel is not just another fish. It's a predator, a top-tier hunter in the ocean food chain. And because of that, it spends its life eating smaller fish that have already absorbed toxins from polluted waters. Over time, those toxins, especially mercury, build up inside the king mackerel's body. Mercury is a heavy metal. It doesn't break down. It doesn't wash out. It stays in the fish, and when you eat that fish, it stays in your body too. Mercury's hidden impact on aging bodies. You might not notice the effects right away. There's no immediate pain, no sudden illness, just small changes, tiny red flags waving quietly in the background. Maybe your father forgets where he left his keys more often. Maybe your mother feels unusually tired after meals. Maybe your grandfather's hands shake slightly when he lifts his coffee cup in the morning. At first, you chalk it up to aging. After all, isn't this just part of getting older? But what if it wasn't? What if the very thing they thought was keeping them healthy, that grilled king mackerel on the weekend, was slowly causing more harm than they ever imagined? Because that's exactly what mercury does. Fish, a common mistake. Confusing king mackerel with Atlantic mackerel. One of the biggest misunderstandings about king mackerel is that people confuse it with Atlantic mackerel. They sound similar. They look somewhat alike. But make no mistake, they are worlds apart when it comes to health safety. Atlantic mackerel lives lower in the food chain. It's smaller. It eats less contaminated prey. As a result, it carries far less mercury. In fact, Atlantic mackerel is actually considered one of the healthiest fish for seniors. Rich in omega-3s, low in toxins, and incredibly beneficial for brain and heart health. But king mackerel? That's a different story. It's a health trap in disguise, sneaking into family dinners, backyard barbecues, and restaurant menus under the radar. And no one's really waving a red flag about it. Instead of king mackerel, try fish wild-caught salmon. Rich in omega-3 fatty acids, wild-caught salmon supports brain function, heart health, and joint mobility. It's also naturally low in mercury and packed with antioxidants. And best of all, your body will thank you for making the switch. Part 2. Fish number 2, tilefish, the restaurant trap. It's one of the most dangerous fish you can eat, especially if you're over 60. What exactly is tilefish? Tilefish is a deep-sea fish found in warm waters off the coast of Florida, the Gulf of Mexico, and parts of the Atlantic. At first glance, it looks innocent enough. Mild flavor, delicate texture, white flesh that flakes beautifully under a fork. So why does it earn a spot on our list of 6 fish older adults should never eat? Because tilefish has some of the highest mercury levels of any fish, even more than king mackerel. Yes, you read that right. More mercury than the fish we already warned you about. Once there, it transforms into methylmercury, a powerful neurotoxin that builds up in fish tissue over time. Smaller fish absorb small amounts of mercury from the water. Then bigger fish eat those smaller ones. And bigger fish eat those. This process is called bioaccumulation, and it means that tilefish, as a top predator, ends up holding dangerously high concentrations of mercury in its body. Why tilefish sneaks into restaurants? Here's the sneaky part. Tilefish often appears on menus under vague names like white fish, catch of the day, Gulf fish, chef's selection. Why? Because it's cheap, easy to catch, and it sells. Restaurants love it because it looks fancy, tastes mild, and pairs well with sauces. But they don't usually mention how risky it is, especially for seniors. It was mercury poisoning, and it almost went unnoticed. Safer alternatives that taste just as good. Don't let this scare you away from seafood entirely. There are plenty of white fish that are both delicious and safe for seniors. Try these instead. Cod. Mild, flaky, and naturally low in mercury. Perfect for baking, grilling, or pan frying. Part 3. Fish number 3, swordfish, the elegant danger. Swordfish has a rich, meaty texture. It's often served with a buttery glaze, grilled to perfection, and plated like a piece of art. It feels luxurious. It tastes luxurious. But beneath that beautiful crust lies a hidden danger, one that older adults simply cannot afford to ignore. Why swordfish is more dangerous than you think. Swordfish isn't just another fish. It's a top predator in the ocean food chain. That means it spends its entire life eating other fish that have already absorbed toxins from polluted waters. Over time, those toxins, especially mercury, accumulate in the swordfish's body. Unlike bacteria or parasites, mercury doesn't disappear when you cook the fish. You can't wash it off. You can't season it away. Once it's in there, it stays, and when you eat that fish, it goes straight into your system. And suddenly, mercury doesn't just pass through us anymore. It starts to stick around. A fish that looks healthy, but isn't. One of the most dangerous assumptions people make is that expensive seafood must be healthy. After all, if it's on the menu at a 5-star restaurant, surely it's good for you, right? Wrong. Swordfish may look elegant on the plate, but it's one of the most contaminated fish in the sea. In fact, swordfish consistently ranks among the highest in mercury content, even higher than king mackerel and tilefish, both of which we've already warned you about. And yet, it still shows up on menus across America. Why? Because it tastes great. Because it looks impressive. Because no one's waving a red flag. Safer alternatives that taste just as good. Don't let this scare you away from enjoying a rich, hearty fish now and then. There are plenty of alternatives that offer the same satisfying flavor, without the hidden dangers. Try these instead. Rainbow trout. Mild, flaky, and naturally low in mercury. Great baked, grilled, or pan-sear. Part 4. Fish number 4, Big Eye Tuna. Ahi tuna, the sushi trap. Big eye tuna, also known as ahi tuna, is one of the most dangerous fish for seniors. And no one's really talking about it. Why ahi tuna is a double threat. Most people think eating fish is good for you. And often, they're right. But when it comes to big eye tuna, there are two major dangers hiding in plain sight. High mercury levels. Bacterial and parasitic risks from raw consumption. Let's break both down. Danger number 1, mercury, the silent brain invader. Like swordfish and tilefish before it, big eye tuna is high up in the ocean food chain. This means it spends its life eating smaller fish that have already absorbed toxins like mercury from polluted waters. Over time, those toxins build up inside the tuna's body. Unlike bacteria or parasites, mercury doesn't disappear when you cook the fish. You can't wash it off. You can't season it away. Once it's in there, it stays. And when you eat that fish, it goes straight into your system. Danger number 2, bacteria hiding in plain sight. Here's the second risk. Ahi tuna is often eaten raw, in sushi, in poke bowls, in seared steaks served rare. And while younger people may be able to handle occasional bacterial exposure, older adults face a much higher risk. Why? Because our immune systems weaken with age. Even something as simple as a low-grade bacterial infection from raw fish can hit harder, last longer, and be much more dangerous. We're talking about things like Salmonella causes severe stomach cramps, fever, and diarrhea. Listeria, especially dangerous for seniors, can lead to meningitis, sepsis, or even death. Parasites, such as anisakis, which can cause vomiting, abdominal pain, and nausea within hours of consumption. And when you combine mercury exposure with bacterial risk, that's a double strike to an aging body. A dangerous misconception: all tuna is safe. One of the biggest misunderstandings about tuna is that people assume all types are safe. But that's far from the truth. There's a huge difference between the kinds. Big eye tuna, ahi tuna, high in mercury, often eaten raw, found in sushi rolls, seared steaks, and upscale seafood platters. Albacore tuna, also high in mercury, often labeled as white tuna, still risky for seniors. Skipjack tuna, much lower in mercury, labeled as light tuna, found in canned tuna products. So if you love tuna, and many people do, here's a simple rule. Stick with canned light tuna and eat it cooked, not raw. And limit yourself to no more than 2 servings per week. There are plenty of alternatives that offer the same satisfying flavor, without the hidden dangers. Try these instead. Canned light tuna, skipjack. Mild, flaky, and naturally low in mercury. Perfect for sandwiches, salads, or casseroles. Wild-caught cod. Great grilled, baked, or pan-seared. Full of lean protein and easy on digestion. Both options give you that same deep taste and texture, minus the risk. And your brain and body will thank you for making the switch. Part 5. Fish number 5. Farmed salmon. The omega-3 illusion. After all, everyone knows that salmon is good for you. Rich in omega-3s. Great for heart health. Good for the brain. But here's what they don't tell you. Not all salmon is created equal. And when it comes to farmed salmon, especially from countries with loose regulations like Chile or parts of Southeast Asia, that pink fillet might not be doing your body any favors, especially as you age. What makes farmed salmon so risky? Farmed salmon doesn't live the life you imagine when you picture wild fish swimming freely in open waters. Instead, these fish are raised in crowded underwater pens. Think of them as fish farms, where thousands of salmon swim in tight, confined spaces. In those conditions, disease spreads quickly. Parasites thrive. To keep the fish alive long enough to sell, farmers use antibiotics, sometimes in large doses. And then there's the feed. The pellets they give farmed salmon are made from low-grade ingredients, things like soy, corn, and even animal byproducts. That feed is often contaminated with industrial chemicals like PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls, and dioxins, both known carcinogens linked to cancer, hormone disruption, and immune system damage. These toxins don't just disappear when you cook the fish. They stay, and when you eat that salmon, they go straight into your body. Over time, they build up, and when they do, they can trigger chronic inflammation, the kind that makes arthritis worse, weakens bones, and strains the cardiovascular system. They've also been linked to cognitive decline and increased risk of certain cancers, all from a fish you thought was helping you stay healthy. A common mistake: confusing farmed salmon with wild-caught. One of the biggest misunderstandings about salmon is that people assume all types are safe. But nothing could be further from the truth. Wild-caught salmon, particularly Alaskan salmon, lives a completely different life. It swims in clean, cold waters. It feeds naturally on krill and small fish. It has no need for artificial colorants or chemical-laced feed. As a result, wild-caught salmon is naturally leaner, cleaner, and higher in beneficial omega-3 fatty acids. Part 6. Fish number 6. Imported catfish, the comfort food trap. Why imported catfish is riskier than you think. Let's start with where it comes from. Catfish raised in the U.S., especially in places like Mississippi, Arkansas, and Alabama, is farmed under strict regulations. The water quality is monitored, feed is controlled, and antibiotics are used sparingly and responsibly. But imported catfish? That's a different story. Much of it comes from countries where fish farming practices aren't as tightly regulated. In these environments, overcrowding is common. Disease spreads quickly. To keep the fish alive long enough to sell, farmers often use antibiotics, sometimes ones that are banned in the U.S. due to their potential harm to human health. Some of these drugs have been linked to antibiotic resistance, meaning they can make infections harder to treat, especially in seniors whose immune systems are already weaker. And then there are chemical residues, pesticides, heavy metals, even industrial pollutants. These substances can find their way into the flesh of the fish and eventually into your body. Over time, they build up. They strain the liver and kidneys. They increase inflammation. And for aging bodies, that can mean more than just occasional discomfort. It can mean real, lasting damage. Immune system under attack. One of the biggest dangers of imported catfish is bacterial contamination. Because of the conditions it's raised in and how it's handled during processing, it carries a higher risk of carrying harmful bacteria like Salmonella, E. coli, and even Listeria. Now, for younger people, occasional exposure might not seem like a big deal. Their bodies fight it off before symptoms ever show. But for seniors, even mild bacterial infection can hit harder, last longer, and be much more dangerous. We're talking about things like severe stomach cramps, nausea and vomiting, fever, dehydration, and in worst-case scenarios, hospitalization. And because older adults already have a weakened immune response, something that might only cause mild stomach upset in a younger person could lead to serious illness in someone over 65. Safer alternatives that still feel like home. Don't let this scare you away from enjoying catfish entirely. There are plenty of alternatives that offer the same satisfying flavor, without the hidden dangers. Try these instead. U.S. farmed catfish. Raised under stricter regulations, American catfish is cleaner, safer, and less likely to carry harmful contaminants. Look for labels that say, farm-raised in the USA, Mississippi catfish, Arkansas catfish. These varieties are tested regularly and meet high safety standards. Tilapia, mild, flaky, and easy to fry or bake. Great for those who love the texture of catfish but want a lighter option. Both options give you that same deep taste and texture, minus the risk. And your brain and body will thank you for making the switch. When it comes to seafood, especially after 60, appearance can be deceiving. And the only way to protect yourself is to know what you're eating and why. Final thoughts on the 6 fish older adults should avoid. You've now learned the truth about 6 types of fish that pose serious risks to aging bodies. From mercury-laden predators like swordfish and tilefish, to farmed salmon laced with toxins, to raw tuna loaded with bacteria. Each one might seem innocent at first glance. But as we've seen, they each carry unique risks that matter more as we age. Older adults aren't just more vulnerable, they're more exposed. Because when your organs slow down, when your immune system weakens, and when your body can no longer flush out toxins the way it used to, every bite counts. Every choice matters. And every meal is an opportunity, not just to nourish the body, but to protect it. Final words, take one small step today. This isn't about fear. It's not about guilt. It's about power. Because now you know. You know what to look for. You know which choices carry risk, and which bring relief. And that knowledge? That's everything. So tonight, Take one small step. Check your fridge. Read the labels. Talk to your loved ones. Maybe swap out that farmed salmon for wild-caught. Maybe replace that big-eye tuna with canned light. Maybe just have a conversation at the dinner table. That's how change begins. Not with big dramatic moves, but with careful, loving steps in the right direction. Because better choices, even small ones, can bring years of clearer thinking, stronger bones, healthier hearts, and better sleep. Isn't that what we all want for our later years? Isn't that what we want for the people we love?